You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
After 500 episodes of the Cabral Concept, I can finally speak again about cannabinoids and the healing power locked within them. So if you've never heard about cannabinoids before today, I'm going to give you 3 previous shows to tune back into. And I'm also going to give a summary of a lot of those points today. Now, it's more than I'll be able to talk about on one show, and that's why I'm going to give you the back episodes on why pharmaceutical companies don't want you to know about this, the clinical studied benefits, and how to use cannabinoids for your own healing-based purposes. But this is a topic that I never knew if I was going to be able to speak on again. And that's the craziest thing about, censorship here in the US and other places, is that they don't always outright tell you that you can't talk about a topic. But what sometimes happens is they take away your ability to either get the information out to people or do what you love. And so I don't know, and I may never know, why we got shut down from offering the highest quality cannabinoids essentially out there. And I didn't know if it was because I was doing a lot of the, what I feel, groundbreaking teaching on this particular topic. And I've always been honest, and I've always tell you that although we have a clinical practice that has seen over 300,000 client appointments and one of the largest basically ongoing studies out there on human health, is that I take my research, of course, from all of the great scientists and PhDs and research studies going on all around the world, not just the US, but a lot of it from Europe as well. And of course, older studies that took place hundreds of years ago that I still look at myself. So here's the interesting thing, though. I quote these studies, I research it, I use it in my own work, I put it together with protocols that I know work in the real world. Well, I started doing that with CBD oil way back almost 2 years ago before anybody was ever talking about cannabinoids. And this was on episode, let me see if I can find it for you, 452. Way back on episode 452, and today is episode 1047, I believe. 1047 is today's show, and I'll link everything up there. But here's the interesting thing. Over 500 shows, about 600 shows before, I was speaking of the benefits of cannabinoids, and this is well before, it was even popular. And the reason I was talking about it is because I began to see it work. I saw the studies. I used it with myself for essentially 6 months, and I talk about that. And this is something that I never thought I would be saying, okay, this is something that you may want to look into for yourself. But the bottom line is that it worked. And it works so well right now. I mean, so unbelievably well. That's why I want to share with this right now with you, is that for many of the people suffering from a lot of the conditions that I'm about to share with you, almost half of those people stop taking their traditional medications. So if I'm bringing you information that could potentially help you wean off pharmaceutical drugs, it's probably one more reason why we eventually got banned from offering cannabinoids, even though it's all natural and it's plant-based. Very interesting to me because there were hundreds of thousands of other people, basically, at least that's what it seemed, offering it, yet we're one of the most, I would say, reputable. We do third-party testing, we show our certificate of analysis, all those things, and yet we couldn't. So for me, I said, okay, I don't know what is going on here. I have no idea what's happening. I'm going to basically shut everything down in terms of my work with the cannabinoids and teaching of it until we figure that out. Because our goal is to represent the best of what functional medicine and integrative health is. So we're creating the next generation of integrative health practitioners to help people use all different modalities. And it doesn't just have to be cannabinoids, and I'm always honest with that. But if we can use it and it helps, why wouldn't we? Well, when I did get shut down, I said, I need to assess what's going on here because I need to still be able to help people. I need to be able to practice. And now they're taking away our ability to do this. It's kind of like, what's next? And they'll never, of course, take away my voice, my ability to teach. But I also want to serve a greater audience. So all of that stopped. Long story short, 2 weeks ago, after a 5-month ban, finally, no one ever gave us a reason. It was just the next day after getting turned down by 12 different processors, even though, again, we're a reputable company. We do things the right way, and there's no way to do it better, right? I mean, we just provide the highest level of customer service possible. And that's what our goal is. But anyway, after going through all that, we get a message literally 2 days after we do this big giveaway, and they say, okay, you're back on. And we say, okay, great. We didn't ask any questions, except that they actually will still not allow us to offer CBD, anything CBD, on equilibriumnutrition.com. It has to be on a separate website. We've asked why, and they just said, that's because that's it. And so we said, okay, well, if that's what we have to do and you want to make it difficult for us, then fine. We don't give up. So what I want to do is I want to teach you why someone would possibly ever shut us down for this particular reason. Why would we get banned as one of the largest providers of the highest quality CBD products out there? And again, you never have to purchase CBD. I'm not saying that at all. But you need to understand the benefits of it. Because why is the whole industry basically trying to be quieted when this is a natural plant-based medicine? So without a doubt, the episode that broke everything open on this was the Cabral Concept 452. And you can just go to stephencabral.com/452. I go into everything on what cannabinoids are, how they work in the brain, and then I follow that up on episode 466 and episode 501. I also have a page that I'm going to link to for the people that might want to just look at all of the highlights rather than listen to more podcasts. That's up to them. But I like to give people as much in-depth information as they would like. Okay, so let's go over that now, as I think this is pretty amazing. What are some of the things that people are using cannabinoids? And again, it's CBD oil, but it can also be other CBD type products. And so I just want you to understand is that what we're looking for is not necessarily the product, but the cannabinoids, the actual plant-based chemical in them. And since I keep saying this word, well, what are they? Well, they're chemical compounds. So these are natural chemical compounds. They're found in plants, specifically the hemp plant. Now, keep in mind that you can have THC, which is tetrahydrocannabinol, and you can just have cannabidiol. And the cannabinoids are the CBD. And the THC comes from hemp or different types of a hemp marijuana-based plant. And there's basically two types, sativa. There are other types. I'm not going to go as in-depth on that today. What I want you to know is that the cannabinoids are just one part. And they're not going to give you the psychoactive-based high. So you're not going to feel any of the psychoactive mind-based effects, except people say, well, why is it that I still feel kind of way more relaxed? And the reason is that there are benefits to THC and there are benefits to the hemp or the CBD. And here's what you have to understand, is that THC will give you the psychoactive high, but you still get the anti-anxiety and relaxation effects from CBD without the high. That's the amazing thing about it. And I did a whole show on that. That was episode 501. And that was all about anxiety and insomnia, ADHD, and all of these symptoms that have to do with CBD's anti-anxiolytic-based properties. That's one of the best and most well-known, well-studied. And again, this is me not saying anything cures, diagnoses, or treats disease. That's not what this podcast is about, and that's not what naturopaths and integrative health practitioners do. What we do is we talk about underlying root causes, but we also talk about plant-based compounds that counter the effect naturally of a lot of the symptoms that we're feeling. So I want to go over some of these items here today, with the first one being, these are clinically studied. This means this, that anything that I go over with you today is not hearsay or conjecture or theory. These things have been clinically proven that I need you to know about. Again, you never have to use CBD. You don't. You don't have to do that. But you have to understand is that there are natural substances in the world that we've known about for thousands of years through Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic-based medicine, other types of medicine as well. So I just need you to know that there are plant-based medicines out there, as well as vitamins and minerals, that can substitute for pharmaceutical drugs. And not only can they substitute for them, they can do a better job because oftentimes they're replacing deficiencies that we have. Or in terms of CBD or cannabinoids, what they're doing is they're actually taking up space in the body and linking up with specific endocannabinoid receptors that we have over the whole body that are naturally built within us. So imagine that. Our body actually has something called endo, or has cannabinoid receptors. Endo just means within. So our own body was built genetically, naturally, with these things called endocannabinoid receptors. And that means it allows us, when cannabinoids enter our bodies, from what? From plants, namely hemp plant. And when it does that, it helps to regulate stress, sleep, pain, anxiety, mood, immune function, appetite, the ability to be at ease and calm, and inflammation. Pretty amazing, right? That our bodies were actually built to receive this specific substance. And this is most likely one of the reasons why a lot of the people talking about this are trying to be quieted. And a lot of the larger companies right now are trying to be squashed, right? And the other thing is this, they're finding that that's not possible, that the movement has grown too much because of people like you, right? Because you say, I'm unwilling to turn to pharmaceuticals if I can find a natural substance. Well, here's the interesting thing. You can. It's out there. But what they're also trying to do is pharmaceutical companies just this year in 2018 have bought hundreds of millions, not a couple million, hundreds of millions of dollars of the crop so that they can either try to patent it for their own uses or that they can get in on this CBD-based industry and then they can increase prices. Because a lot of these pharmaceutical costs tens of thousands of dollars a year, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, when they need to cost maybe a couple $100 a year, like they do overseas. So you have to understand there's always a reason why, and my goal for you is just to have the knowledge. So let's go into now the different symptoms. We're not going to talk about diseases today because in natural health, we do not cure or treat disease. What we do is we work on the underlying root causes, and then we understand that a lot of these diseases of the body are simply symptoms. They're packaged symptoms that we try to treat with specific pharmaceutical drugs that block receptors in the body. They don't help to re-regulate, but they can block these. So let's look at them right now. A couple of things that I do like is I want to talk just first about the anti-anxiolytic and the anti-psychotic-based properties that CBD has. So they give a tranquilizing and relaxation-based effect on the body. So the very first time that I used an organically grown CBD oil and a full spectrum, this has to be full spectrum. So always look at the brands and say, is this full spectrum? That's one part of it. It can't be in the isolate. Isolate, think of it as almost like single. You're not going to get the broad spectrum, full spectrum, if you're using an isolate. Now, there's a time and place for isolates. You can use them because they're typically completely THC free, which is if they're grown correctly or extracted correctly, it's only 0.3. But you want the full spectrum for the full benefits. So the anti-anxiolytic and the antipsychotic based properties. The first time I used the CBD, getting back to that, I sat on my couch 20 minutes after I took it, and I just, was relaxed. I believe I was reading. And when I was reading, all of a sudden, just kind of this wave of relaxation came over me. What does it feel like? Well, it feels like you're at the end of a long week or so. You sit down on your couch, you take a nice deep breath, and you just feel calm. Like your body just is relaxed. And it's relaxed in both mind and body. And that's what I felt. So it takes that stress and it just kind of dissipates it. A lot of people try to get that through alcohol. And this is something that you can do that does not have more of those toxic-based effects. So I see people a lot use it for meetings at work. They'll take it 20 minutes or half hour before they have a meeting to relax their body. Or as I did it for basically almost a 6-month period of time because I wanted to see the effects of it before I ever brought it, to the public, essentially, on my podcast, is that every day when I got home from work, I would put a full dropper under my tongue and I would just hold it there for 2 minutes. And as I held it for 2 minutes, it would move through the capillaries under my tongue right into my bloodstream. And it would allow it to be right into the blood rather than having to be fully processed through my digestive system or my liver. Now, this gave me a greater effect, of course, putting it under my tongue. So what it did was it allowed me to switch kind of from work mode just to family mode and be more relaxed, to be more present. That's one of the greatest benefits that I got from CBD for sure. So other things that it does is this. It helps with nausea and vomiting. So a lot of people with digestive issues, they have the vomiting, they have the nausea, again, because of one of the things is stress. Here's pretty amazing. Since it is plant-based, it has adaptogenic properties. If you're someone that has a really strong appetite, sometimes because of stress, right? It will help to lower that. If you're someone that has a weak appetite, sometimes because of stress, right? One's more of the pitta and one's more of the vata. If it's weak, it could be vata. And if it's very, very strong, it could be the pitta. Well, it helps to regulate that as well. So too little appetite will help bring it up. Too much appetite, if it's because of stress, will help calm it. One of the things with inflammation and pain relief, people get a lot of stiffness in their joints, pain in their joints, pain in their muscles, headache, tension, all of those things CBD oil has been, or CBD, the cannabinoids, again, it can come in many different forms, can be absolutely beneficial for you as well. Another one, this has been studied in pets and humans, seizures, convulsions, epilepsy. If I did not bring you this point, I would be completely at fault. Because one of the greatest things we're seeing is epilepsy, seizures, tics, any type of, I would say, nervous system, neurological based conditions. So important to look at this because it can work really quickly. And again, you do not have to take my word for it, nor should you just take any one person's word for it. I invite you to always do more research. I have no problem with that at all. But you can see real people's videos online and they have no reason to be promoting this to you. You can go on Instagram and you can just see people, pets that are having seizures, giving them CBD oil, children, babies. I cannot recommend enough, not for you to do any one product, but for you simply to look into the information because it's out there. And I would hate for you to miss out for this, or for someone that you know that has a child with these types of conditions to not be able to get this type of care. I'm not going to name names right now, but there are some quite larger celebrities and influencers that I've spoken to, and they've seen the benefits of CBD oil themselves with their children and with other people in their family that are suffering from either seizure-based disorders, tics, epilepsy, and the results have just been astounding. They really have been. But again, I want you to look into this for yourself as well. Skin conditions. So a lot of people with psoriasis, and there's a lot of people with just blotchiness of the skin, or even, I would say, skin rashes that they've been determined mystery-based rashes. Well, we've done things two ways. We've taken CBD internally, of course, for 4 to 6 weeks. We need to give it time. But then we can also try it topically as well. And I always recommend anything you do topically that you test on a small patch, just like the size of a dime here in the U.S. Tiny. Think of it as like the small tip of your small finger, right? Your pinky finger. Think of that. Test it, small spot away from the eyes to see how it works in your skin. You can do that overnight. So we also have some great studies coming out now on CBD's bacterial, antibacterial, and antifungal-based properties. So I do a lot of gut-based work in my practice. So we have a lot of people with candida overgrowth, a lot of people with SIBO. We have a lot of people with H. pylori, etc. Well, we're looking into those right now, and we have seen pretty good results. So we'll use CBD oil. Now, we don't have to, because we don't use that as part of our candida and bacterial overgrowth protocol. That's why I'm trying to tell you today, you don't have to use any one product, because there's more than one way. But when you do something like the CBO protocol, it's laid out for you exactly everything that needs to be done, because everything has to be done, right? Well, on top of that, you can add additional things. Right? You can add additional things such as caprylic acid if you want to do some coconut oil on a daily basis. That's up to you. If you want to do CBD oil on a daily basis for antifungal, antibacterial properties, you could absolutely do that as well. Powder Arco tea is another great thing, right? As an antifungal. So really, really great. What else do we see? Well, pretty interesting with people with MS or just nervous system degeneration. We have some neuroprotective based properties of CBD. Why? Well, it helps with inflammation anywhere in the body, and it also helps with stress. Okay. It's also an immune balancer. So for those people that have too high of an immune system or too low of an immune system, too much of a Th1, Th2 imbalance, CBD can be great for that as well, especially what I've seen in my practice. Again, just anecdotally in my practice, Th1-based imbalances. So a lot of the autoimmune-based issues. Anti-proliferative-based properties as well. What does that mean? Well, a lot of times when we see tumorous growth, okay, we see in a metastasis of cells, CBD oil has been already shown, but also additional clinical studies being shown to help potentially with cancer. And again, we're not treating or diagnosing disease over here. I can't say that. But what I can say is look into the research on CBD and cancer as well. Helps with people with osteoporosis, osteopenia, because it can help with bone-based growth. Great, and I've seen this in my practice as well, as an anti-insomnia-based tool. So in addition to our deep sleep protocol, we'll have people use 25 to 50 milligrams of a full-spectrum CBD. They'll do that before bed, and they will help relax their body, right? So they'll get into a deeper state of sleep, which is more rejuvenative. That helps with everything, right? From digestive properties to rebuilding the body. So I'm just going to give you a couple more today. But one of the reasons we see things work so well with people that get recurring cases of SIBO and using CBD is that, and again, I can't stress this enough, you can get SIBO from simply stress. So there's a valve called the ileocecal valve, and it is basically right in the bottom right of the abdomen. Okay, so if you were to trace over from your navel, from your belly button, all the way over to the right, before you get to that hip bone, and then go down just about an inch or two, you'll find your ileocecal valve. Well, what happens there is that your small intestine empties into your large intestine. Well, that's a great thing. That's supposed to happen. That's how we get all this waste out of our body. But what it's only supposed to be a one-way valve, a one-way street, a one-way system. Well, what can happen is, for those people with high levels of stress that affects their gut, that valve can stay open. And when it stays open, it can actually allow for the colon or the large intestine bacteria to move into the small intestine. When that happens, you get recurring bouts of SIBO. So if you're someone that's been dealing with small intestinal bacterial overgrowth for many, many years, and have not found the relief that they need, you could certainly do the Candida and bacterial overgrowth protocol along with something that's going to calm the sympathetic nervous system and calm, it's called prokinetic. It's going to allow for the calming of that peristaltic movement, or for the peristaltic movement in your intestines take place to get that waste right out of your body. So we're a huge fan of using that. We'll also use magnesium. So we'll use either the whole deep sleep protocol at night. We'll use just magnesium at night. We'll use full spectrum magnesium at dinner. But no matter what, we're going to calm that intestinal pathway as well. Works great for muscle spasms. I didn't mention that one, but that's another one as well for a lot of people with muscle-based twitches. If it's not electrolyte-based, meaning if it's not calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, you can absolutely get benefit with those cannabinoids. And so you'll notice I'm giving you a lot of items in addition to CBD today, and that's because I can't help not to, right? As an integrative health practitioner, I need to pull in everything that it could be, not just one thing. What I'm trying to say to you is this, is that pretty much whatever you're doing right now, if you have stress-based disorders, if you have sleep, if you have inflammation, if you have pain, if you have anxiety, if you have mood, and if you have immune-based issues, whatever you're doing right now as a protocol, keep doing it. I'm not saying not to do it. What I'm saying is you can get even greater benefits by adding in something called cannabinoids, CBD. And the reason is you can get greater benefits is that our body, as I talked about earlier, has a built-in endocannabinoid system. And that system only works when you put cannabinoids in the body. Now, why would you do that? Well, you would do that if you were struggling with the symptoms of the stress, the anxiety, the mood, the insomnia, the pain, the inflammation, the immune system dysregulation. So if you have any of those things, you could potentially be getting even greater benefit working with your integrative health practitioner or the protocol or book or whatever you're following right now. So my job to you is this. I'm going to try to continue to break down all the benefits of cannabinoids and CBD every couple months. I'll try to add in a new podcast, a new show, if new questions come in, I'll make sure that I answer those. But what I want to do today is give you all of the backstory. So if this is your first time really understanding or hearing about all the benefits of CBD, what I want to do is give you the previous shows as well. So I'm going to link them all up today at stephencabral.com/1047. And those shows are this. It's episode 452, it's episode 466, and it's episode 501. And I would love you to start at the beginning. Start with 452, what big drug companies or pharmaceutical companies don't want you to know about CBD. I talked about this almost 2 years ago. And then we'll go up to 466 of how essentially it all works. I talk about more in depth the receptors, right? The CB1 and CB2 based receptors. I talk about that. I talk about why those people who get paranoia and anxiety or any of those things from using marijuana can actually get benefits from CBD because it helps reverse or negate those paranoia based symptoms, and how it helps with PTSD and stress and anxiety. And then on 501, I talk specifically about the anxiety, the insomnia, and that's because I've just seen such great results with it. So, but again, I want you to look into it yourself. There's 3 more podcasts to listen to. Just go to stephencabral.com/1047. I will be sure to add those 3 podcasts. I will just embed those for you. And also, I'm going to link up the CBD oil page. And what that will allow you to do is just read more about the product. You can listen to the 3 podcasts on that page as well. And then if it's right for you, you can, of course, decide to sample the product for yourself. And again, you can use it with your family, you can use it yourself, and you can use a dosage that I've seen work in my practice anywhere from 25 to 50 milligrams to start for adults. It can be much smaller for children, somewhere between 10 and 20 milligrams to start, and then you can decide to work your way up. There is, again, always do what you feel is right for yourself and your family, but there are no overdoses with CBD. It's a natural plant-based compound, but of course, still, like anything, use it wisely. Hopefully today's podcast was helpful. I'm always happy to answer questions. You can just head over to cabralsupportgroup.com. We can answer them there. Or on Instagram, it's just my name, Stephen Cabral. I'd love if you could check in. Let me know what you thought about the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, if the show was helpful, please do feel free to pass along to anyone else it could serve. Did you know that the body really only becomes sick or imbalanced in only 2 ways? Over time, you become deficient in vital nutrients, and you also accumulate toxins internally and from the environment. As those nutrients diminish and you increase your total toxic load, your body then begins to show the first signs of dis-ease. It's actually quite predictable, and the good news is that if we know how you began to fill up that proverbial rain barrel, we also know how to empty it to begin the healing process. I was fortunate enough to learn this ancient healing process from my mentor after suffering from debilitating diseases for close to a decade. It was only when I began to implement these techniques did I finally overcome my illnesses and go on to live a life of energy and vitality that I now enjoy. I'd like to share with you now what I discovered after traveling all over the world and how to combine the best of ancient healing wisdom with state-of-the-art science. Allow me to teach you exactly how I've been able to help over 250,000 people to empty their rain barrel and begin to transform their body and lives into what they've always hoped they could be. To get your copy of the international bestseller, The Rain Barrel Effect, simply go to stephencabral.com/rainbarrel.